turns out there's an old practice called understanding by design by Wiggins and McTighe, and it's pretty well understood, but it isn't well implemented. And it starts by understanding the learning objective that you'd like to convey, knowledge or skills. After that, you design assessments that measure whether you've met those learning objectives. And it's only then that you actually design the learning experience, so you've got an idea of what you're aiming for. The most important new thing, though, is competency-based. Measure your learners at that set of skills before you give them all the learning experience, because if they already know it, don't waste their time redoing it. Starting with finding things that engage the learner or of interest to the learner become the most effective. After that, you want to personalize beyond their level of interest. It could be everything from the time of day that works for them, to a style of delivery, to subject matter. Once you've got that in place, then you can use the science of learning to really make the learning effective. Everything from the length of the learning experience to how it's delivered. And wherever possible, let people do, not just receive. So you don't want the learning washing over them, you want them to get a chance to implement. Maybe it's just teaching it back, maybe it's doing something hands-on, but something that lets them take their learning from long-term memory back into short-term memory, which is one of the things that kind of really embeds learning pathways and makes knowledge stick. I wouldn't be scared if I'm an educator by the whole idea of learning science. It sounds like it's a big, daunting, complicated field, but if you break it down into some simple things, find something that's research-based, give it a try. If it works, great, continue to evolve it. If not, maybe you refine it or ditch it altogether and move on to the next thing. So if there's a couple of specifics I'd say around learning science, one is to keep the duration short. Our attention spans have never been long, and they certainly aren't long now. If you can do something in 5 minutes, ideally, no more than 10, then change things up. Give the learner a chance to interact with each other, give them some assessment, give them a project to do. Finally, do something social. So we know that peer learning works and that social interaction works, so layer that into this time that you spend between receiving instruction. If I'm a student, I want to take ownership of my learning. Think of a transcript. A transcript exists in a university office somewhere and I have to request that it be released. Instead, every time I take a learning experience, I want to document it. Digitally, maybe it's a credential that's backed up by an issuer. Maybe it's just me saying I had a conversation with my boss or I attended a webinar. If I can then add to that the competencies that those learning experiences cover, now I can explain to somebody, maybe it's a next employer or a next academic institution, these are my competencies and here's the evidence that I have to back it up. But that only works if I'm the learner and I have that list of learning experiences, not something that's tucked away in a vault somewhere. So my first time here at Reimagine Education, I was invited by one of the QS people who I met at a different conference, probably a lesser conference, but having a great time meeting people, attending sessions and learning. I've had the good fortune to be on a panel and hopefully give people something to think about.